I'd be very curious to know if you've ever played the game Dungeons and Dragons. So if you have, please comment below the video because that's going to be the main topic of conversation today. I'd love to explore with you how Dungeons and Dragons as a role-playing game is essentially an allegory to the nature of our reality. And this is something that I didn't recognize at all when I was a kid playing this game, but now looking back, it's very clear. And it's still a very cool game. So for a little of a context, if you don't really know what I'm talking about, when I was a kid growing up in the 1980s, principally, long before the era of video games, or maybe not long before, but definitely before the era of video games, and certainly adventure or role-play video games, we had a game called Dungeons and Dragons. And Dungeons and Dragons was basically an epic role-play game where you would have multiple players, and every player would assume a character in the game. And what was really interesting about these characters is they had basically a morality and an alignment. So what do I mean by that? There were two principal polarities that you would choose from when building your character. In other words, you kind of had to take a side. Well, you could remain neutral in certain things, but really the point of the game was to pick sides. So the two polarities are lawful versus chaotic and good versus evil. So there you go. It's right in the game. And then you could combine these different alignments to create what they call the classic 9 alignments. So for example, lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, and so forth. Lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral. So you can see how you would combine these and then of course you would have personality traits beyond that you could build up your character. But this choice of morality and alignment was fundamental to how you would build your character. So what would happen is once you get your characters together, you would essentially do what's called a campaign. And then the campaign might consist of certain quests or adventures, and then it could span across multiple sessions because these epics or these campaigns could go on for quite a long time. And so you might have a session, we all get together at our friend Joey's house, we're going to play for a few hours, and we're going to pause the play, come back and continue where we left off. So there's kind of a long-term aspect to it where you would build up your character over time, build up experiences, have many adventures. Now, of course, in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, as the name suggests, there are many different fantastic creatures in that world. All kinds of strange beasts and monsters and otherworldly creatures of just anything you can imagine. So in that way, it's not, obviously in our day-to-day lives, we're not always encountering monsters. Or are we? Maybe we are. See, I think in the real world, the monsters are what we typically call the narcissists, or the sociopaths, or the psychopaths. And some people put forth that they've had experience with encounters with creatures or beings that were clearly not human, at least not in the way we are. But let's just say in the day-to-day lives, the monsters and creatures that we encounter in real world are, like I said, the people that we would normally describe as narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. And they are the ones that are principally aligned with either chaos or evil or both. Right? And that's very clear and very apparent from their behavior. So in many ways, Dungeons and Dragons is kind of like a mini spiritual allegory. And I would say that it's that polarity, that need to take sides, or the importance of taking a side and then having different characters with different alignments, is part of what makes the game challenging and engaging. I mean, frankly, to put it another way, the game would be pretty boring if everybody was on the same side. And I think that in life that is true. In life we are playing a very deep spiritual game. Okay? Now when I use the word game, I'm not saying that we don't feel real pain or suffering or we can't experience real consequences, because from our perspective, it's all very real. In the ultimate substantial reality, it's all an illusion, and when we transcend this lifetime and go on to experience something else, it shows that it demonstrates basically, we are essentially immortal at the spiritual level. But when we're here in the very real world, facing very real consequences, it's all very real. So I'm not negating that, but it is a game. It is a game because people step into roles, they choose sides, and they act accordingly. So I think Dungeons and Dragons shows the importance of deciding and choosing where you fit in that alignment. In other words, are you truly good? Do you intend to align with good? Are you truly evil or somewhere in between? And it also underscores the fact that good and evil are real. And just like chaos versus order are real. And we get to choose. Right? We don't get to choose what other people decide. We simply get to choose how we show up in the world. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that we can learn in life, is that it's important to decide where you stand. Especially with questions of good versus evil. Where do you stand? Whose side are you on? Okay? Because in this reality, both exist. Both good and evil exist. Right? It's very clear. It's very apparent. Both are present. And you really do have to choose a side, in my opinion, because often, I wouldn't necessarily say always, but often when you just say, well, I'm not getting involved, I'm just neutral here. Well, you are essentially giving your approval to evil. I mean, you're giving your approval to everything if you're truly neutral, but it also means that you're essentially tacitly agreeing to whatever evil is being caused, because you haven't really taken a side. So it seems to me that it would make more sense for you to embrace where you intend to really stand. So this world is kind of like forging your morality. Do you stand for protection of the children, for example? Is that something that's important to you? And so forth. And any kind of harm or evil that would be caused. So Dungeons and Dragons, or any role play, any similar role play, is just pointing out that that's part of the journey of life, to decide where you stand. And then to fully step into that character and that way of being. And you get to choose. Nobody can choose that for you. Of course, you can be influenced. We're all being influenced. But ultimately, the choice is yours. How you want to play your character. How you want to show up. By the way, just as a fun aside, I think Dungeons & Dragons is a great game. And I'm sure if someone's really intrigued by it, they could even still get a classic Dungeons & Dragons playset today. I haven't played it for many years, but it's a great alternative to video games if you're into more classic role play. So that could be something fun to look into, just to see what kind of experience you can have playing Dungeons & Dragons. And maybe you're currently still playing it. If you are, I'd love to hear from you. Like I said, I haven't played it for many years, but I have very fond memories, and I remember how much I would be engrossed in the game, and how seriously we would take our characters, and I even got to a point where I started creating different creatures. So if you've played the game, you probably know that you can buy these volumes of monsters or creatures, and it's just a volume where different characters, meaning monsters, creatures, beings, different types of entities, with their own personalities, their own alignments, were essentially created and then could be deployed in the game. They could be used in a campaign or in a session. But I got to a point where I was actually creating my own creatures. I found it so fascinating, and I would just conjure up or imagine all these crazy different creatures with just, 2 eyes, 4 eyes, 6 eyes, 2 heads, long beaks, swords instead of fingers, just whatever you can imagine. I came up with all kinds of crazy creatures. Some of them with super high intelligence, some of them more brutish. So it was a lot of fun. It's definitely a worthwhile experience, and I do have fond memories of Dungeons and Dragons. So, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. I kind of got right into the content. So, if you're new to this work, I'm David Greenberg, and this is the Sacred Contrarian. And as the name suggests, this is really about walking the sacred path of pursuit of truth, even when it goes contrary to popular opinion or what most people are saying. We're not afraid to walk a unique path here. Really, the goal is just to pursue truth and knowledge and great values. And so if that vibes with you, you're in the right place. And I'd love to have you join us here and maybe even get involved. If you appreciate this content, go ahead and hit the like button. That will help me to reach more people. As you can see, this is still a very young channel, which is totally cool. It's going to take the time that it takes to grow. But if you like the video, that will help me just reach just a few more people. And also consider subscribing, because I will continue to create content like this, where I kind of contemplate these deeper, important questions. Not very long videos for the most part, just sharing thoughts, kind of a way to look at things, maybe a unique aspect. And of course, if you have topics that you'd love to hear about, I would appreciate you letting me know. So I'll sign off for now, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.